It was a dark, cool night. He had just stepped outside, away from the warm glow of the fireplace, into the gentle breeze. He had loved to admire the stars, and tonight was no different. So he gazed heavenward and admired their beauty. Countless stars shimmered against a dark black sky, unobstructed by any kind of electric light. But suddenly, something bright flashed across the sky, and by its light, the other stars seemed to dim. Now, he had been out there on countless nights, but he didn't recognize this object. But Edmund Halley, he was a man of science. So Edmund took to his books, finding 24 similar occurrences happening between 1337 and his in 1682. Edmund Halley was a man of science, and most importantly, a mathematician. He used that knowledge to determine that 3 comets were of particular interest. By analyzing their orbits and trajectories, he determined that one seen in 1531, 1607, and his in 1682 were all the same object. Halley made a prediction. He predicted that that same object would be seen in the sky years later in 1758. Unfortunately, Edmund Halley died in 1742 without ever discovering if his prediction was correct. Edmund Halley had been a close friend of Sir Isaac Newton, who, developed the theory of gravity. It was with this knowledge that Edmund Halley was able to determine the trajectory and path of the comet. He discovered that it was influenced by the gravitational pulls of the planets it passed by, specifically Jupiter and Saturn. He predicted that the comet would return in 1758. Unfortunately, he died in 1742 and never learned if his prediction was correct. I'm sure by now you've guessed that Edmund's comet has come to be known as Halleys Comet, one of the most famous comets on our nighttime sky. It was named after Edmund Halley when it again streaked through the sky on December 25th, 1758. He had made his prediction correct. He had just barely made 1758 by 1 week, and his math was proven correct. By the 1750s, scientists and mathematicians were learning of the brilliant equations that we see all around us. One example for us today is the golden ratio, or pi, described as 3.14. We see this everywhere. We see this pattern in seashells, flowers, even in microscopic organisms. The golden ratio has been used in art and even construction. Equations really are the language of our world. In 1758, French mathematician Alexis Claude Clairaut found Halley's prediction. He was determined to find an equation which could describe the comet's trajectory and path, making future predictions much simpler. His solution was crude, but nonetheless clever. It involved solving a set of calculations, solving the problem numerically. Although it was clever, it required hours and hours of calculation. For this task, he employed 2 of his friends, and the 3 became human calculators, or computers, in the summer of 1758. Now, if you remember my video from a couple weeks ago, then you'll remember that the word computer, in reference to digital machines, is a relatively recent invention, even from the 1940s and 1960s. For more information on that video, click the card at the top of your screen. But, as a quick refresher, computer used to refer to humans that did math, that word. Even in the 1960s, NASA employed a number of human computers to complete necessary math for the space program that put men on the moon. Those 3 computers did solve their problem, and they developed a series of equations that could be used to describe the trajectory and path of the comet, as well as help predict it. Clairaut's equations have been used to predict Halley's Comet over the years. The last time the comet was seen was in 1985, and we should see it again in 2061. Calculating the path of the comet was certainly thrilling, and it was important to science as well as our understanding of the universe that surrounds us. However, the importance of math and equations in everyday life is far, far more vast. After that summer of 1758, Clairaut's 2 friends were hired by the French Academy of Sciences to develop important tables and mathematical equations for the French almanac. 5 years later, the British government hired 6 of their own computers for their own tables and almanacs. Now, these almanacs were much more important than a farmer's guide to the weather. They tracked the positions of the heavenly bodies above and formed the basis of celestial navigation. This new form of navigation allowed greater reach for the European colonies and Europeans around the world. These mathematical equations represented the power of mathematics and their use in real-life application, extended around the globe. Late in the 18th century, one man started the largest human calculation project ever to be attempted, at least at the time. He hired 96 human computers to compile a 19-volume set of logarithmic and trigonometric functions. His project was commissioned and developed by the French government. Now, in the 17th and 18th centuries, digital computer machines were still hundreds of years away. Remember, the computers we use are relatively recent, but that didn't stop men and women from understanding the importance of math. I understand, math is not everyone's cup of tea. It certainly isn't mine. But math is the language of our world, and as binary numbers illustrated last week, click the card to learn more, math really is the language of our computers. So, an important understanding in the history and importance of computers must start by understanding computers and appreciating the math involved. Math can also teach us much about our Creator. Math surrounds us. Math can describe my height. It can describe the current and flow of this river. I mentioned the golden ratio as yet another example of the math and equations that surround us every single day. To me, it's only evidence that we were created by a brilliant God who has created order in this incredible universe He has given us to explore. And speaking of exploration, He longs for us to explore it and learn more about Him and His creation. Even as we as humans discover and build computers and technology, we learn more about how we were created after His image. Those equations that Clairaut and his human computers discovered in the summer of 1758 form the 10th major milestone in the history of computing. And that's how Halleys Comet has influenced the modern computer. If you haven't subscribed, please remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you never miss a video. I'll be publishing a new video on computing history each and every Saturday. It's going to be fascinating whether you use a computer or have never seen a computer. Read today's blog on Medium, link below. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter with hashtag #TechIsATool. Ow! Ow! And that's what you get. Alright guys, if you'd like to explore the history of computing further, click here, or technology in general, head over here. That's it guys, next week we explore an important prank in the history of computing. See you then, bye!